What is going on, everyone? And welcome back to another episode of Twins Latest. I'm Sam Calder. Hope you're all having a good day thus far. And we've got a little bit of everything in today's episode. I am excited to get down to business. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and kick things off with a reunion. We have already had one Twins reunion this offseason when Taylor Rogers signed on a one-year deal. And today we've got another, with infielder Gio Urshela in the Twins agreeing to a minor league deal that includes a non-roster invite, which just means he'll be at spring training despite not actually being on the Twins' 40-man roster. Urshela spent 2022 in Minnesota with the Twins, and I'll be the first to admit, hand up, I did not remember his numbers being as good as they were in Minnesota. He hit 285 with a 338 on-base percentage and 43 extra base hits in 144 games. Urshela will be 34 years old this season and will probably be battling for a reserve infield spot. Since his time in Minnesota concluded, he has played for the Angels, the Tigers, the Braves, and this past season was with the Athletics. He hit 238 with a 287 on-base percentage and did not hit a single home run in 59 games with the A's. And you got to factor in, too, that he was in one of the most hitter-friendly ballparks in all of baseball out in Sacramento this past year, and still did not have a single home run. He's never been a huge power hitter, but his pop has really taken a dive since he left Minnesota after 2022. In 249 games over the last 3 years, he has a combined 11 home runs, and it kind of makes you wonder if at this point in his career, is he still an MLB caliber hitter? Looking at his advanced data on StatCast, he wasn't eligible for any of the batting metrics because he only had 197 plate appearances last year. But that's probably for the best. He was comfortably below league average in every single metric aside from expected batting average and strikeout rate. But it was pretty bad. He swung and missed quite a bit. 30% of every pitch he swung at was a whiff. That would have been right around the 15th percentile among all MLB hitters. His average exit velocity was below 87 miles an hour. That would have been also right around 15th percentile. Moral of the story here is that despite having had a solid big league career, I don't see Gio Urshela being very productive this season unless Royce Lewis is hurt, or I guess just abysmal at the plate. I anticipate being at AAA for majority, if not all, of 2026. I personally would not give him a spot in the big leagues over Eric Wagaman or Tristan Gray, and those guys project to be the primary backup third baseman. Brooks Lee can play some third as well, so there should be enough options at the hot corner that Urshela should not be needed. I just don't see a way at this point in his career where Gio Urshela is a better option than any of those guys. But injuries certainly can happen, and we're going to talk about some fallback options in case of injuries later in the episode, so stay tuned for that. But unless that happens, I just don't see Gio Urshela being of much use, if any use, this season in the majors. But shifting from Gio Urshela, we have today's prospect deep dive, and the prospect we're talking about today is a guy who can play a handful of spots defensively. It is Kyle DeBarge. The Twins' top 30 prospects list for 2026 are not out yet, at least on MLB Pipeline and Fangraphs, the two platforms I like to use the most. But there were some split opinions on DeBarge to end last year. Fangraphs has him as the number 22 prospect in the Twins system. MLB Pipeline has him at number 11. From what I've seen and the digging that I've done, I would probably have him closer to number 11 like MLB Pipeline has him. But he's definitely not a perfect prospect. DeBarge is certainly not a massive human being. He stands at 5'9", 175 pounds. The Twins used the 33rd overall pick in the 2024 MLB draft on him out of Louisiana Lafayette. And that was actually the pick they got as a result of Sonny Gray leaving, since it was a compensatory pick. DeBarge spent all of last season at high single A, where I would say he was okay. It was certainly nothing spectacular. Over 543 plate appearances, he hit 237 with a 347 on base percentage and 36 extra base hits. That 237 batting average came with a 303 average on balls put in play. So he hits the ball hard enough, but he has certainly had some swing and miss struggles. His speed, though, is absolutely absurd. He stole 66 bases last year. That was the third most of any minor league player across all of minor league baseball. He also stole 15 bases in 26 games in 2024 after being drafted. So his 162 game stolen base pace right now is at about 90 over the course of his MLB career. He had a powerful bat in his last season in college, but it kind of seems like that's not who he's going to be as a professional hitter. He has just 9 home runs in 147 games since being drafted. He had 21 his final year at Louisiana Lafayette, but that comes after having just 10 homers the previous 2 years in college. His fly ball rate was at 36.5% last season, which isn't super high, but you would like to see some higher power numbers in that case. That's still not a super low number. It kind of seems like he's probably just going to be a 7 to 10 homer guy over the course of his career. And that can play in the majors, but you need to be hitting much closer to 300 than close to 240 in order for that to work. And not only did he hit 237, but he struck out in 22% of his plate appearances at high single A. That's got to change. He does draw a lot of walks, and clearly he's got the speed to do damage on the base paths. So if he can just put the ball in play more and get on base more in 2026, that would be a really, really good thing for him. A nice part about Kyle DeBarge is, as I mentioned, he can play a handful of different positions in the field. Last year, he made most of his starts at second base, but he also made 22 starts at shortstop, 16 starts in center field, and 4 in left field. His defense as a whole took a really, really big step up as well, going from 8 total errors across 26 games in 2024 to 6 total errors in 2025. He should continue to improve defensively as he gets more reps. And I'm curious to see where he lines up defensively as he gets closer to the majors. Because ideally, second base is set for the future with Luke Keeschall. Shortstop is ideally set for the future with some combination of Brooks Lee, Kalen Culpepper, or Merrick Houston. And not to mention center field is likely set with Walker Jenkins. And if it's not Jenkins, it's probably Emmanuel Rodriguez or Gabriel Gonzalez. So there really isn't a ton of room where DeBarge plays. I see a lot of upside with him, but I can also see a lot of ways things go wrong for DeBarge. I worry he's going to have a lot more swings and misses as he works his way up the minors, and that might prevent him from working his way up quicker. But if he is able to get that under control and start putting the ball in play more, he could easily hit for a high average, and with his speed, that could be really, really dangerous. I anticipate he'll probably start the year at Double-A. But that doesn't mean he can't be sent down to high A if he struggles or if he just starts at high A. All in all, I think he's a really, really fun player, kind of like a player you would make in MLB The Show, just an absolute burner on the base paths. And like I said, if he starts putting the ball in play, we could easily see him hit 270 with another 60 stolen bases in 2026. But that is Kyle DeBarge, and let's move on from him. We talked last week about some ways that the Twins season could go wrong in 2026. The first and main thing that I brought up was health, because we have seen this team struggle with staying healthy in the past, and that has certainly led to some disappointment. But I wanted to take a look at some of the Twins' more injury-prone names and talk about who would need to step up if they were to go down again. The first name that really goes without saying is probably the best player on the Twins. It is center fielder Byron Buxton. Buxton has played over 100 games in a season just 3 times in his 11-year career, with 2 of those 3 seasons being 2024 and 2025. Now, you can look at that optimistically and say his health fortune has turned around, or you can look at it pessimistically and say he's due for something to come up this year. And I won't fault you for either thought process, but regardless, he is always going to be someone who you worry about getting hurt. So who would need to step up should he go down? The first name is Austin Martin. We haven't talked a ton about him, but he's the projected 4th outfielder for the Twins. He also carries a bit of an injury history himself, but he was really solid with the Twins last year. He hit .282 over 181 plate appearances and had a .374 on-base percentage. He's got good speed and defense in the outfield, and could be a platoon option for Matt Wallner or Trevor Larnach against lefties this year. But he's definitely the first guy to know. The other name that I'd think you'd want to see step up, should Buxton go down, is the Twins' #1 prospect, Walker Jenkins. We talked about him extensively in our first prospect deep dive a couple weeks ago, but he's a primary center fielder who I expect will make his MLB debut at some point this year, ideally this summer. The downside with him is that just like Buxton, Jenkins' downfall has been his own injury history. He's missed a good chunk of each of the last 2 seasons, but has been fantastic when he's on the field. He is definitely a name to know for the future, but also someone who could step up should Byron Buxton get hurt again. The next name I want to bring up, as far as a different player who could get hurt, is third baseman Royce Lewis. He's kind of had the same career arc as Byron Buxton thus far. Extremely talented, extremely highly touted prospect, but injuries have really hurt him. Since 2019, he has one professional season with over 100 games played, and that was last year. So who would need to step up if Royce Lewis goes down? The first name that comes to my mind is Eric Waggaman. Waggaman hasn't played a lot of third base over his time in the majors, but he can. He's capable of doing it. And he's better against left-handed pitching. But all in all, he hit 250 last year with the Angels and hit the ball pretty well. His average exit velocity was over 91 miles an hour, which is great. I anticipate he will be on the opening day roster. There is some uncertainty with that. But if I were to project things out, I think he's on the opening day roster and would be the immediate replacement to Royce Lewis. I'll also mention Tristan Gray and Gio Urshela, but I'm not sure Urshela will see the majors, and I think Gray will be more of a backup middle infielder than of a corner outfielder. The other name that could get called up following a Royce Lewis injury is the Twins' number 2 prospect, Kalen Culpepper. He will probably start the year at AA, but should get promoted to AAA sooner than later. And it's not entirely out of the equation that he starts at AAA. I just don't think he will. But he's got great power and speed. He had a 2020 season last year, which is just 20 homers, 20 stolen bases. He's a good defender and can play third base as well as shortstop and second base. So he could fill in at shortstop and have Brooks Lee slide to third should Royce Lewis get hurt. But there's a lot of options should Royce Lewis go down. And then the final name I want to look at is second baseman Luke Keeschall. He has had his fair share of medical issues. He only played in 77 games last year due to a couple of different injuries. So who would need to step up if Keeschall goes down? I'll be honest, I think there are several options, like probably more than I can count on one hand. But as far as non-starters who could fill in, I've talked about a couple already. The first being Kalen Culpepper. That's assuming he's MLB ready in 2026. The other name I brought up is Austin Martin. In addition to being the Twins' 4th outfielder most likely, he's also played some second base, and he could definitely fill in for Keeschall depending on the state of the outfield. The other couple names I think are the most likely are Cody Clemens and Tristan Gray. I think Gray is probably a more viable option against lefties, where he's been far better in his MLB career. Clemens spent a good chunk of time as the Twins' starting second baseman in 2025, but he'll also probably be the primary backup first baseman, so I don't know how much time he would get at second. And then not to mention, I mentioned Brooks Lee as being a guy who could slide over to third base. He can also slide over to second base if need be. But overall, the Twins have so much depth, particularly in the infield, that if/when things go wrong, they will have options for who will step in. And in my opinion, that is the biggest strength of this Twins team entering 2026, is their depth. And then to wrap up the episode, we've got our Twins player preview. We're going back to the bullpen today, and we are talking about lefty Taylor Rogers. Rogers signed with the Twins a couple of weeks ago on a 1-year, $2 million deal. It will not be his first stint as a Twin, as he spent 6 years in Minnesota from 2016 to 2021 before being traded to the Padres in that deal where the Twins got Chris Paddock and Emilio Pagan. And since he's a lefty, that is fantastic considering how few left-handed options the Twins have in their organization right now. Rogers threw 50 2/3 innings last year with the Reds and the Cubs, finishing with a 3.38 ERA and 53 strikeouts to 22 walks. Looking at his expected stats, it probably should have been the worst season of his career. He gave up a lot of hard contact, not a lot of swings and misses, and his walk rate was up over 10%. And that's worrisome for a guy who's 35 and has seen his average velocity drop. He also only throws 2 pitches, a sinker and a slider. He threw the slider 51% of the time last year, the sinker 49%. His slider is a very good pitch. It had a stuff plus rating of 116 last year. That's with 100 being average. His sinker, on the other hand, is not as strong. It had a 92 stuff plus rating. Historically, Taylor Rogers is a really solid ground ball pitcher, but he went from being in the 70th percentile in ground ball rate in 2024 down to 48th percentile last year, which 48th percentile is still not horrible. But considering there was pretty sharp decline year over year from 2024 to 2025, it worries me a little bit more. Rodgers will definitely help out of the bullpen this year, and he's definitely the most proven option of all the Twins relievers. But the decline we saw last year has me a little worried about just how high of a level he'll be at in 2026. According to Roster Resource, he's projected to be the Twins closer and have 20 saves, which is 14 more than any other reliever in the bullpen. I definitely think he will get some saves, but I've been very adamant that I think this is more likely a closer by committee type of bullpen where there really isn't a primary closer. That said, though, it is certainly possible that Rodgers just is comfortably the best reliever for the Twins, and because of that, he becomes the primary closer. But given what the advanced data says for him, I wouldn't bank on that happening, and so I still think this is a reliever by committee type of bullpen. But that's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for tuning in to Twins Latest, and if you enjoyed, please do me a favor and subscribe to the channel. If you've got a Twins-related topic or topics you want me to talk about in a future episode, please let me know down below in the comments. But until next time, I'm Sam Calder, and I'm out.